London didn't just break tonight, it detonated. One moment the streets were calm, the next, sirens, flames, and a wave of panic rolling across the city like something out of a nightmare. And the strangest part, no one can agree on what started it. Some say it began with a single confrontation outside a crowded station. Others whisper it was planned. And a few, yes, the ones who always seem to know things before everyone else, insist the government knew this was coming hours before it exploded. Sources claim the warning lights were already flashing, but no one lifted a finger. It began just after sunset. A crowd formed. Small at first, angry about something no one could fully explain. A rumour spread, fast, sharp, electrifying. Someone shouted that police crossed the line. Another voice yelled back that the public had enough. Within minutes, the mood shifted from frustration to fury, like the city itself inhaled gasoline and someone flicked a match. Could one rumour really tear through London this quickly? Apparently yes, and then chaos. Shouting, shoving, a wave of bodies surging towards the police line. Officers stepped back, then forward, then back again, unsure whether to hold or retreat. Eyewitnesses say the tension snapped when someone hurled the first object, a bottle, a brick, a spark. Who even knows anymore? But whatever it was, it ignited everything. Flames leapt from a parked car, smoke shot upwards, and within minutes, the entire block looked like a live-action disaster movie that nobody asked to watch. Insiders say the first emergency call went out at 8:14 p.m. But by the time reinforcements arrived, the streets were already lost. Lost, that's the word they used. Not troubled, not unstable. Lost. If that doesn't tell you how fast this thing spiraled, what will? Across the river, bewildered residents filmed everything, every angle, every fire, every scream. Social media exploded with clips before authorities could even confirm what was happening. London Erupts hit 1 million posts in half an hour. One video, shaky and blurred, showed a patrol car reversing so fast it nearly hit a barrier. Another showed masked groups smashing windows with an efficiency that didn't look spontaneous. And that's when the whispers started. Was this really random, or did someone want this to happen? By 9 p.m, the situation had outgrown London. Helicopters circled overhead. Neighbourhoods went into lockdown. Streets emptied so fast it felt like a mass evacuation. Families peeked through curtains as the glow rose from the skyline, an eerie, pulsing orange that kept spreading. And in the middle of it, the government stayed almost completely silent. A single statement: authorities are monitoring the situation. Monitoring? As if watching the capital burn like a bonfire was part of the plan. Sources claim internal channels were flooded with frantic messages, requests for backup, warnings that certain areas were too dangerous to enter. Even reports of officers abandoning their posts. But the public didn't hear any of this. All they saw was chaos growing, while officials pretended everything was under control. And then came the clip that froze the entire country. A lone officer, helmet cracked, breath shaking, staring directly into someone's phone, his voice barely audible under the roar behind him. "We can't hold them." The video vanished minutes later, deleted, scrubbed, buried. But not before half the city saved it, not before millions shared it. Once something hits the internet, you can bury it under a mountain, but it still finds a way to breathe. Meanwhile, everyday Londoners started to panic. People ran, shops shuttered, buses abandoned mid-route. Streets looked like a mix between a stampede and a blackout, and through it all, no one seemed to know why. Why tonight? Why this sudden explosion? Why now? Residents in East London reported groups moving too fast, too coordinated. Others claimed it was all ordinary people finally snapping after years of pressure, and a few, those who always speak quietly, suggest it wasn't the public that lost control tonight, but the government. So here we are. A burning skyline, a silent government, a city holding its breath, and a country watching closely, wondering if this is just a bad night or the start of something much darker. By the time midnight crept in, the tension that had swallowed London didn't fade. It multiplied, spreading across the UK like shockwaves from an unseen explosion. Cardiff, Glasgow, Liverpool, cities hundreds of miles apart, reported sudden unrest within minutes of each other. Coincidence? Insiders say it didn't feel like one. In fact, one senior official allegedly muttered that it looked suspiciously synchronised, a phrase that leaked online and sent the internet spiralling into theories. Meanwhile, London streets, still glowing with scattered fires, became the stage for a new and unsettling twist. Groups of civilians banding together not to riot but to defend their own neighbourhoods. Shopkeepers stood shoulder to shoulder with residents, forming makeshift barricades out of bins, metal shutters, and anything they could drag into the street. Some called them heroes, others said they were vigilantes. But everyone could agree on one thing. They were doing more than the government seemed capable of. And where were the leaders during all this? Hidden behind thick doors in Whitehall, allegedly arguing over whether to call in the military sources, claim the Prime Minister and his advisers were locked in a heated debate, terrified that deploying the troops would confirm publicly and undeniably that control had slipped from their hands. But the public didn't have time for political panic. They were dealing with something far more immediate. Fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of the unseen. Fear of the fact that the truth felt foggier by the minute. People whispered that certain areas had been abandoned. Others claimed some officers refused orders to re-enter the most chaotic zones. And then came the chilling reports, groups moving in patterns that felt too deliberate, too efficient to be random. Who were they? Protesters, gangs, outside forces? No one could say for sure, but the uncertainty alone was enough to set the entire country on edge. South London residents reported power flickers. In Birmingham, alarms blared across an entire shopping district with no one there to respond. In Manchester, the streets filled with smoke from a warehouse blaze authorities said was unrelated, but the timing made that hard to believe. And while all this unfolded, one thing became painfully clear. The official narrative and the reality people were witnessing were no longer even on speaking terms. Sources claim that journalists inside major networks were instructed to avoid alarming language. But how do you avoid alarming language when the footage itself looks like the country is cracking? As dawn started to push against the night, the chaos didn't die, it shifted. People woke to blockade roads, burnt out vehicles, districts cordoned off by emergency tape, and an eerie sense that something fundamental had changed. Schools announced delayed openings. Train lines halted services until further notice. Entire highways were slowed to a crawl as travellers were stopped and questioned. And through all of this, the question everyone kept asking was the one no official dared answer. What triggered this sudden nationwide shockwave in the first place? Some pointed to the rumour that ignited the first confrontation. Others swore there were deeper causes: frustration, pressure, anger that had been simmering beneath the surface for years. Yet the most disturbing whispers suggested something else entirely, that someone wanted this, that the chaos was not a consequence but a plan. And if that's true, then tonight wasn't an accident. It was a test, a warning, a message. As the sun climbed higher, smoke still rising in scattered plumes across the skyline, the government prepared for a nationwide address. People gathered around televisions, phones, radios, waiting, breath held, minds racing. And the only thing more terrifying than what had already happened was what might be said next. Because if the country is already on edge, if trust is already shattered, and if London erupted this violently with no warning, what on earth is the government about to reveal now?